Welcome to Azeroth Roundtable, episode 375. My name is Ben Bumhofer. Before I say anything else, if you are joining us live right now and you're, got here because of a Twitter announcement earlier this week or anything like that, and you just saw like, I am stoked to listen to, John and Bell and maybe Ben talk about World of Warcraft, I have a surprise for you. Those two people aren't here this week. Yeah, unfortunately, life happens. John isn't feeling super well, and unfortunately, Bell's computer is in pieces, so you can't really stream and podcast very easily if you don't have a rig working. So, unfortunately, they're not here this week. But I did talk to Bell, and she said that she will happily join us next week. In theory, John should be here. So, if you don't like me and you only like them, feel free to skip it. We'll be here next week. But luckily, coming through as a huge lifesaver this week with me is Ro. So hi, Ro. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Ben. It's Friday night in Azeroth. John's not here, and I can say that if I damn want to. It's great to be on.
You can say whatever you want, really. I go through and edit things out. Oh man, so yeah, it's one of those days where it seems like the world's kind of falling apart and stuff, but hey, you came in, you saved it, and I appreciate that. So first and foremost, thank you very much for joining me this week. And
I'm always happy to be on. I was going to be playing a little bit of D&D tonight. My plans kind of changed, so
well, there we go.
Everything just kind of comes together.
Yeah, so hey, look at this. The world just kind of twisted and turned just so that you can join me tonight. And I appreciate that. Yes. Okay, so John's not here and you're here. And I think this is the perfect time for me to say I hate end bosses of Raid Tiers 4 expansions.
Do you though? I mean, let's think about let's kind of go back in time a little bit. Our very first raid boss that, as a raid team together, we did in FERT was Garrosh Hellscream and Siege of Orgrimmar.
Yeah, which
and
it took us a while.
You saying that not too long ago, I said it feels like with Garrosh, we had to DPS that fight so hard that we skipped a phase. And now for what is, again, an end boss of an expansion, it feels like the only way we're going to get N'Zoth is if we DPS hard enough to skip a phase.
Oh, yeah. That is exactly what's happening with us. So, okay, just to give an idea, if you're not a raider, the mechanics of N'Zoth are kind of simplistic, but they need to be done. I wouldn't even say to perfection because, we're a normal raid team. And first of all, before anybody writes in or says we beat him in the first week or what, you're not on heroic or whatever, you apparently don't listen to the show. So, it's a fight where we get to the same point every single time and that's it. And a lot of it has to do with, because we're friends and family and everything, we don't have the exact consistent raid team every single week. So it makes things a lot more challenging to make sure that we have, enough melee or enough range, which that's never the issue. It's always we don't have enough melee, it seems. And the way that the mechanics work on this is that you need to drag this thing around the room, killing tentacles by it so that it's hurt enough or it is debuffed enough so that you can kill it before you actually attack N'Zoth.
Right.
And it's not that bad when everybody's able to do that together. We're able to just go in there and just, we got past the first phase pretty fast for us, I would say. I mean, still, maybe it took a night or two before we got the pathing down, but I think that first phase, we're good. We're great. Then the second bit, we're good, we're great. We get, kill some tentacles, some eyeballs, stuff like that. And then this is where things start getting a little rough. We split the party. And then one group stays above, killing tentacles and eyeballs and stuff, which it can be challenging depending on how many people we have. But for the most part, we're down to the point where we're generally successful and, are interrupting things where we need to and everything like that. And then the melee group and the other tank that go back and do essentially a repeat of phase 1 by themselves. And we've come out of that before. We've gotten super close before, but it's all about timing in the exact dance. And, make sure that you don't stand in things, make sure you don't get hit by things. And if they pop out, that's great. It's not enough, and too many people come out like insane, or we lose one or two people there. And I mean, overall, it's a kind of mechanically easy fight that's you really need to master in order to move past it.
So, to kind of add on to this, to explain why it is, some people are maybe listening to this, and again, maybe like, well, I don't get it. Our team down normal N'Zoth fairly easily. We had 11 or 12 people, blah, 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 this and that. Some things to kind of throw into here to give this a little more context, to be a little more specific about our friends and family group. And people in our raid team that may be listening to this episode, please keep in mind that when I say the things I'm about to say, I include myself in it too. I'm not calling any single person out when I say these things, because I'm just as much a part of this as anyone else, believe it or not.
And also keep in mind, hey, I switched specs in the middle of this raid, so
yes,
I'm part of the problem, and I totally get that.
There are a couple of things that we have going against us, or a couple of things that make this fight a little more challenging than I think it would for most normal raid teams. That is, I would say the average raid team member in FERT probably only logs in for the bare minimum of time to raid, and that's essentially raiding time itself, and maybe an hour or two outside of that to like do a horrific vision or one or two other things. The average age of our raid team members is, probably
we'll just say 30s. Old.
Yeah, 30s, 40s.
We're not in our teens anymore.
We're kind of an older raid team. And you know what? I'm going to admit it. My reaction time, my response time, I mean, I really didn't want to admit that this day would come, but I'll admit it. My reactions and my responses aren't as fast as when I was 25. That's just how it is. If you look at our raid logs and you compare how we do DPS for our gear level compared to people who are also parsing on the logs, we're on the lower end of that thing.
Yeah.
So while we definitely have the gear, I mean, a lot of us have an average item level of 450 something right now. I would say a good majority of us don't invest as much time into honing in rotations and stuff like that as other people do. And not because we don't want to, but just because there's only so many hours in a day, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's family, whether it's work.
It really is a big part of that too. And like the fact that I was able to change back to mage and everything is like, one, because we had enough healers to take over my spot, which was good. But two, I really busted to try to get what I could and spent so much time, bringing this mage up to par with what she could be. In fact, just yesterday. Sorry, my days are all over the place these days. But so Thursday, I just got a rank 3 essence of Memory of Lucid Dreams, which is like, kind of the big one for a fire mage, because hey, it lets you, your fire blast reset just faster and faster and faster, which lets me throw off pyroblast left and right, which is great.
I hear this loves that essence.
Oh, it's great. And the thing is I just did it because of the amount of time that it takes to get to the point where you finish an achievement on this. Now, I was kind of close on my monk, but when I found out that, we could buy the rank 3 essences, this is really cool. She had to go through a whole lot in order to get that achievement done. So I'm like, not doing that. Don't care. And then we got to the point where, we're just kind of butting our heads against this. I started looking back at little things that I could do. And, getting rank 3 essences is part of it. I'm really happy that rank 4 essences are all cosmetic, and that's it. At least for the ones that I, don't have rank 4 in. So I bumped up 2 of them, so I'm sure that helped a little bit. I added an infinite stars to one of my pieces because, that's a new thing that you can do, which is great. And, I've been playing this mage for a while now, and I could see my growth as my gear got better, as I've had more time with it and everything like that, just going back through all of our logs, which is good. That being said, I'm still not that great. And part of it is because, I do this show, I do 3 other shows, I have other games I want to play, and I also have a full-time job. So it really is a lot about time and how much I can actually put in. The fact that I have a level 15 horrific or cloak is baffling to me. The fact that I've actually gone through and raised the corruption on it is baffling to me. And like, for my playstyle, I'm not saying I have the exact best in slot gear, but for what I'm playing, I probably have the best in slot gear just because I'm not running mythics. I'm not running anything else, So it's just kind of like I'm doing everything I can, and I know that everybody else is too. And that's where these sorts of discussions and stuff get frustrating, because it's not like I can be like, "Hey, Ro, quit your job so that we can beat this boss."
I mean, it's only your source of keeping a roof over your head. It's no big deal.
You don't need that because we need to kill a giant thing full of eyeballs.
Yeah,
that's what we need to do.
So I'm reminded of back in the day. Now, you got into WoW, if I remember, around Burning Crusade, right?
Yep. Yeah. Right after, as the Island of Kil'Danas was released.
Yes. So I feel like outside of FERT raiding, my favorite expansion for raiding was the first full expansion that I got to raid, which is Wrath of the Lich King.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Icecrown Citadel, and as much as I love Ulduar, I really did love Icecrown Citadel too. It's probably in my top 3 raids in WoW, honestly. Ulduar is always number 1. Icecrown is 2 or 3. And I remember we didn't get the Lich King down anywhere near as fast as a lot of people did on the same difficulty. And over time, you had this growing buff that allowed you to do more damage. It was basically their way to nerf it over time so that people could eventually take down Arthas and have enough DPS and stuff to take him down. Now, as WoW has progressed and evolved, they've turned that nerfing system on the raid into something like with corruption, where as long as you're improving your cloak, you improve your corruption resistance. In a way, it's kind of nerfing the encounters because you are allowing to equip more corruption. You have the resistance to handle it, so your DPS is going to go up naturally over time. And I appreciate that approach. There's only one problem with it.
It's random.
It requires a time investment, where the Icecrown Citadel buff, you didn't have to invest any time to make that buff go up. It was just, it's a new week, the buff went up more. I feel like we're far enough into the N'Zoth expansion, and this is going to sound totally like I'm entitled and stuff.
Oh, no.
I'm going to sound like an entitled raider when I say this, but I'm like, why can't we have an increasing buff like that? And then I know people listening to the show are going to be like, if you want that, go to Raid Finder. It's like, no, I don't want to go to Raid Finder, because here's the thing. I don't want to play on Raid Finder because in Raid Finder, 90% of the mechanics, heck, 95% of the mechanics don't matter. I want to play in an encounter where mechanics matter, but I also don't want to feel like I'm bashing my head against the wall over and over again every week without making much, if any, progress. And if a 5% buff to damage, after every week or every other week makes me feel a little better about working on the boss, then great. I'm not going to turn it down. I don't know. How do you feel about like the concept of just having a growing buff like the old Icecrown Citadel days?
Well, Venjik in the chat kind of said, didn't Siege of Orgrimmar have that too? And I'm like, I remember something about that, but it was us being able to upgrade our gear. as opposed to going through and having just the blanket buff. I forget exactly the details
They
behind it.
did have the buff too. I think that was one of the reasons why we were able to push hard enough to skip a phase.
See,
I think it was the buff combined with that.
and I know that the gear part was a decent chunk of us were constantly upping that every week, and that's what we were able to do. And so okay, I as for final bosses in an expansion, the first one that I ever actually killed was Garrosh, first one.
Oh, okay.
Then we went into Warlords Draenor. Then that didn't happen. We got to the last boss, but just weren't able to do it. And then we go into Legion, and we were actually able to do every single raid. It was tuned really well, and like we were the most successful that we've ever been, probably in Legion. And
Downing Argus felt really good.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, that fight took us a little while too. I mean, definitely not as long as N'Zoth has, but it took us a while to kind of get to that point. And we weren't, let's see, like it wasn't like super close to when Battle for Azeroth came out or anything. We were what I would call ahead of the curve for normal for us. It's like
That's fair. Yeah,
yeah.
that's fair.
And then, we took a nice long break and everything. This expansion, though, the tuning has been off. And we've talked about it on the show multiple times about how, like, everything in the raid instances it hasn't worked. Like, we've been successful at everything, but there's always been roadblocks that are just really in the way. Like, and a literal blockade, which was the worst fight in the entire game.
For cards.
Yeah. And then we get to Eternal Palace. I don't know the name of anything this expansion, so yeah. But we get to Eternal Palace, and that felt right. That felt like the perfect tuning for our raid, and it worked out really well. We get to Ny'alotha, and we're actually doing pretty well in that. Like overall, I think we only hit what is it, Vexana, the dragon. Like we had some big issues with her, and then after that, I mean, we've only done Carapace one fight. We beat it once, and then that's it. So I don't know. Maybe we need to go back through but I don't think gear is really our issue, though. It really comes down to just kind of the dance and the mechanics and stuff like that. Because, I mean, the people who are able to like do mythics and get like these huge affixes and pluses and stuff to it and stuff, they're geared pretty well, and in a sense are kind of carrying the rest of us. But it's just like not enough to just get over that finish line. And it's funny because like I said, like you said, we kind of danced around this a little bit. Back in Siege and Orgrimmar, we skipped an entire phase. It was the phase where the ads come out because we just could not kill the ads fast enough. So when we get to the point where we were just constantly just always able to skip that, we were successful every single time after that phase. And with this one, it almost seems like as long as we're able to do 15% on each no shield phase on the Zoth, we might have a chance at this. But the thing is getting to the point where N'Zoth is actually at 70%, like, has not happened yet. We've gotten to 84%, 83%, a few times just on that first bit.
So if we time warp, we can do it. But the problem with that is you need that time warp at the end of the fight.
Exactly. And so it just comes down to this dance of we're just constantly smacking against this wall for this boss. So if there was some sort of like growing buff or something that happened, that'd be great. I remember back in Wrath, they had a thing where you talk to someone and it turned the buff off. So if you don't want that, there you go.
I guess my question is, does having that kind of artificial buff, I mean, obviously we had no problem without it in the past, but I mean, people change, times change and stuff like that. I think Garrosh said that once. Does it feel like taking advantage of a passive buff or nerf to a dungeon? Does that feel like cheating to you? Does it rub any bit of the thrill of downing a boss when you finally do it?
Well, see, here's the thing. I think if I was rating it, or if we were rating at a higher level, like if we were heroic raiders, then I would have an issue with that.
Yeah.
The fact that it's been this long since the raid came out, we're obviously, a friends and family group, which, gosh, take a shot no, don't take a shot every single time we say that on the show, because that happens way too much then. But because we are, that kind of like, low level of play and everything, I think that we're in it to see the content and to hang out with our friends. Like, yeah, I want to beat this boss, and I'm not gonna lie, I want to beat the boss so I can stop raiding this boss.
Isn't that kind of, and you know what, I have to admit, I'm kind of feeling that way too, and that frustrates me a little bit, because beating a boss, we should want to beat the boss so we feel good about like having beaten it. It's like, yeah, team, go team. And beating that final boss should feel like a great thing. I have this weird expectation in the back of my head that I feel like I know how beating the Zoth is going to play out. We're going to get to the Zoths. Things are going to just barely click. We make it work somehow. Maybe this joins us for a little extra Fire Mage DPS to get us over the hump. And we get N'Zoth down. And I'll say maybe 1 out of 3 of us are like, yeah, finally. And most of us, Ben and I included, and probably Tet, are going to be like, thank goodness.
Well, and here's the thing too.
Next week we take off from raiding for a while.
Here's the sad thing. So Jason in the chat said that he's pretty sure that we need to fight Sycus 3 times, and it's not actually the health percentage of N'Zoth. And if that's true,
well, there's the first Sycus, right, which is the one at the very start, and then there's the 2 splits. So yeah, that is fighting Sycus 3 times.
Oh, okay. Well then, yeah, that's what we're doing. Okay, never mind. We're good. You just scared me for a second there.
Once you get through that, then there's like a smaller, similar add to Sycus that pops up that the tanks have to take care of. But yeah, we haven't even gotten to that yet.
No, I'm thinking twice, because there's the first one where everybody's there, which we can get them down to 85%. Then the second one, if we can get them down another 15% to 70, technically that's where it's supposed to kick over. So that would just be 2. But if we have to go down regardless, then there's no reason why we're pushing ourselves as hard as we are.
Yeah.
But even so, we still need to get past that phase, which is where we're stuck.
And so for when that first split is happening and we have all of our range players up in one group taking care of tentacles up, I'm going to say upstairs because that's just how I call it, while the other people are in the other phase downstairs, if you want to say kiting Sycus and killing tentacles, putting the debuff on, and all of that's going on. It's a little demoralizing when you get the call to go ahead and wipe it, and you feel like the range group is up there, and we're not really doing anything wrong, but things just didn't click. Things just didn't work out downstairs. One tentacle got past too soon or something like that. And when I say it's demoralizing, I'm not like, oh, the stupid melee team. I'm not blaming the melee team at all. I feel a little helpless because it's like, man, I want to do something to help them out down there. It's like I almost wish that the 2 phases somehow had a bit more interaction, where if we did our job better upstairs, it would improve things in the other phase.
Like if we killed a tentacle faster or something like that, it takes a percentage off of Sycus's health or something.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to have just that kind of interaction where it feels like the 2 teams are still kind of helping each other out by performing their task right. Where instead it's like you have one group, they're doing what they're doing, they hear a call for their wipe, and it's like, okay, I guess we wipe. And the other team is like, and I can only imagine what it feels like to be a part of that team, because I know that they're trying their damnedest to try to get through that thing, and it's just things don't click together, and I feel bad for the melee team. I really do.
Yeah, and the thing is too is that both you and I have both gone into the mind phase to try to help out and everything, and because we're ranged, and guess what, we have to cast while and stand still and stuff. It doesn't
fire,
it doesn't work as well either. So it's just one of those things where it's like we don't have the right comp sometimes, so we don't end up raiding. We have people missing because, life happens and we don't end up raiding. And then the nights that we do, it's just, bashing our heads against the wall to the same exact spot every time. So anyways, enough about complaining about raiding. And it's not even complaining. It's just frustration.
Yeah, it's just kind of venting our grievances about the state of things. It's like there's no one I'm even necessarily mad at about the thing. It's like I don't blame any specific raid member.
Yeah,
I don't
it's no one's fault.
Devs for designing the fight poorly. It's just kind of one of those weird encounters where things aren't clicking with our group. It's like it's just that fight doesn't seem to be the right fit for what our group does, whereas something like Argus, worked out fine. It's just different fights, I think, play to different strengths and weaknesses of different raid teams, and this one doesn't play to our strengths as well as other final bosses did.
And the really funny thing is, too, it's like, you're right, I'm not mad at anybody. I'm not even upset at the devs or the design or anything like this. Like, it's not, the tuning's wrong or anything, because we've gotten through the raid, and I know that it has to be harder because it is the final boss of the expansion. That means something. It's just the wall. But you know what? I will say that I feel like we're making better progress than we did with Blockade. So
yes. I do feel like there is an end in sight. I don't feel like it's Blockade all over again. I don't get that feeling. Yeah. I have a curveball question to throw to you.
Okay.
So, as you are aware, some people have been following me on Twitter might be aware.
Oh.
For about a week now, I've been playing this game when I haven't been playing WoW. I've jumped on a huge bandwagon, and
I'm partially to blame.
I now live on a deserted island called Zaretto. Did you figure out why it's called Zaretto?
I have no idea. I'm guessing it's some sort of Square Enix game.
It's an anagram of Azeroth.
Oh.
If you rearrange letters, it's Azeroth.
I did not look at that and think too deeply on it.
No one caught it yet. Anyhow, so yeah, I'm playing Animal Crossing. I've done it. I'm now one of us. I have a whole bunch of turnips that people gave to me. It's strange because it's like you play Animal Crossing and you have all. And
did you not sell your turnips yet?
What's that?
Did you not sell your turnips yet?
I've not sold my turnips
yet.
Yet.
Tomorrow's the last day.
I haven't had time to go somewhere where the price was high.
I'll check it after the show just to see what mine's at, because you need to get rid of those, because after tomorrow they're rotten. They're gone.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, okay then. All right. But to kind of tie this back into WoW,
mm-hmm.
I'm playing Animal Crossing, and I'm digging just having that personal space, being able to shape this piece of land however I want it, plant a tree there, grow some stuff here, dig a thing here, build a thing there. And I gotta tell you, it's giving me that itch and that urge to ask the WoW team, player housing when? Because I want this in World of Warcraft so much, or even like 1/3 of the stuff that Animal Crossing has. If there was just 1/3 of that kind of gameplay, if I could have an instant space where I could terraform an island. Heck, we're going on island expeditions. Let's go on an island expedition where you find your own island and then you get to build a house on it. I don't care. And it could be a blatant ripoff of the concepts of Animal Crossing. That's fine. I mean, they blatantly ripped off the mechanics of Pokemon with pet battles. But man, Ben, I want a lot of the stuff that I'm experiencing in Animal Crossing in WoW so bad.
Okay. So here's the thing, I've gone back and forth on player housing for a long time, and for the longest time I'm just kind of like, it's not important, but I would still dig it if it was in the game and everything. And after Garrisons, which it was a grand concept that didn't work as well as anybody expected or wanted, I think. That being said, like I still remember all my time in Final Fantasy 11 of having a Mog house. Granted, I didn't go super duper crazy with it because it was just one room and I wasn't actually doing a ton of the content where you get stuff to put in it. But I mean,
But it's your room.
yeah, but Christmas time comes around, damn right I have a tree just sitting there and looking really cool and stuff because, you know, the trees in best stock were really neat. And well, I know the Rollin or the shoot, I don't remember what the Elven place was. Anyways, that place was the one with the good one. But anyways, beside the point, it's made me think of all the different just random scenic stuff that's all around WoW. Like you go into any tavern, there's paintings on the wall, just random paintings that are really neat. You know, I wouldn't mind having that. Being able to put, you know, trophies or armor sets like we had at our order halls was really cool. The idea of being able to put up, you know, like trophies from different things. Like, can you imagine if you had a chunk of Deathwing's jaw in your house or something, you know, or like
Right.
displayed
Older
in your
content.
yard?
Yeah, it's collectibles, yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because I almost didn't jump into Animal Crossing because of the time commitment and stuff. And the last time I played one of those games was way back on the GameCube. And playing it now is so much more of a, I want to see this in WoW. I want to be able to, you know, collect stuff. Like I've got random crap in my void storage, which became useless once, you know, the transmog system turned into what it was. But it's still neat stuff. Like I've still got my legendary cloaks from Pandaria. I'd love to just like hang them on a wall or something, you know?
You still have a GURP arrow?
I never got one, but
You never got a GURP arrow?
no, it's fine. But I mean, the idea of having a place on your own is so much more meaningful to me now that, you know, my characters have been around for a long time. Like, you know, I personify them and play them and think of them as these loners who are just kind of going around, going from one conflict to the other, never with a place to call home. And then when I changed from Alanya, my fire mage, to, you know, my monk, I'm like, well, where is she retiring? And so now she's in the mage order hall because, you know, she's the head of the mages, even though that's technically never going to be canon. But in her game, it is. So that's where I leave her. You know, I wish that the farm that you got in Pandaria could be done, you know, a little better and stuff, because like one thing that I did when I decided to stop farming on all my characters who farmed, which was a lot of them at the time, is I planted those tree seeds. So if you go to the field, there's these nice trees that, you know, growing there that look really cool. And I don't know, I like the idea of having a home base for your character, even if it's just to, you know, put your own trophies and invite people over to see stuff. Like I don't need it to be useful for anything.
Yeah, I don't need a garrison with all the conveniences of a city. The player space that I want doesn't need to have gameplay affecting stuff that makes things more convenient for buying things or professions or anything like that. I just want a personal space that kind of feels like I can invest into making it look how I want to, making it feel like a home. Because, I mean, this is... when we're playing this game, we are playing in a virtual world. It kind of makes sense that playing in a virtual world, you might feel like it'd be nice to have a virtual representation of a home in that world.
Yeah.
And other MMOs do this, obviously. I think it's one of those interesting problems where I think the reason why we don't see it happen and why we might never see it happen the way we want it to is because you have to wonder, has World of Warcraft just grown too big to implement a system like that? Because yes, you could put a system in like player housing, but I feel like if you were to put it in, it would start small and people would want it to include a lot more. It's like, I feel like a system like this, like with Pet Battles, when Pet Battles came in, you got to think about it's a relatively, you know, minor system in the game, but in order to implement Pet Battles, they had to put pets all throughout the world, create a whole bunch of different varieties, give each of these ones different sets of abilities and stuff like that. Implementing a pet battle system was a lot of freaking work.
Yeah.
Now, if you think about player housing and you think about all the potential you could have, like collectibles and stuff, and how to craft it and how to make it look that way, and then you bring in the concept of, well, maybe you get things by going to different places and stuff like that, that is a huge time sink commitment. And I think from a developer point of view, you have to ask yourself, okay, does enough of our player base want that feature that is worth investing our time to give it to them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's funny because like my first thought whenever we talk about player housing is we need to add a woodworking profession just in there. And the thing is you can take every profession and turn it into something to just provide for player housing, as opposed to, the stuff that nobody uses anymore. Like, I don't know how many expansions have gone by where the armor that's crafted just is horrible as soon as, you get one drop.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter anymore. Or the fact that sometimes it's green, sometimes it's blue, the stats are random. It's like, it's not an engaging thing to do, to be all like, okay, well, first of all, RNG aside, I don't think that for the most part there's a lot going on with crafting. In fact, as an alchemist, I'm still missing, I think, 2 or 3 of the alchemist only pets from this expansion, and I've made that stupid quivering sack every single week this expansion, and I'm still missing some.
You always love talking about your quivering sack.
I do, and it's just frustrating because it's RNG for pets that I'm just trying to collect pets. Nope. But anyway, so all that aside, the fact that they put battle pets into the game is something that I'm still really happy about, because one, I did a whole show on it for a while. There's kind of that. But the thing is that there's 2 different aspects and views that I have on that. First, they put the whole system in, which is, a robust system. They had to create all the different abilities and everything and go in and assign them to all the different pets. Them putting a squirrel and 50 variants of them in every single zone across the land, not exactly the biggest fan of, considering they have the same exact model. It's like my alpine squirrel does the same thing that my normal squirrel, that my children's week squirrel does, like stuff like that. I'm like, not a big deal. The exclusive, designs and everything like that, that's what I'm in for. That's what I like to collect and everything. So while they put a lot into it, maybe they shouldn't have put as much, just because of the variety is like the illusion of variety. Whereas the thing that they would have to worry about with housing is, especially if they look at it in an Animal Crossing sort of way, okay, how many types of furniture are we going to put in? Are we going to have a different, like, specific theme for each race? Are we going to have multiple looking chairs for each race? Look at things like that. You have to start looking at, if we have to have some sort of trophy or something from, say, raids or dungeons or something like that, you have to figure something out for every single one. What happens when someone, has beaten all the dungeons and gotten all those trophies? Are they able to display all of them? Do they have to choose? There's a lot that would kind of go into this, but they can make it, they can make it really robust. But again, like kind of like you hinted at, is there too much going on in WoW right now to really incorporate all these different systems or all these different things into something like player housing? And I would love to see it. But when do we get to the point where everything that we do in WoW needs to somehow correlate to everything else? In fact, I would almost say that that's been kind of to our detriment in this expansion.
I feel like our best and last chance for player housing is after Shadowlands.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're not getting player housing in Shadowlands, and I think Shadowlands is a wrong time to try to implement player housing, because we're literally going to another plane of existence. We are going to we're going to basically the universe's afterlife and the different realms of it, and trying to do player housing at that point just seems a little awkward from a story lore point of view. So I get that, but
Oh, I've
there
got my
have
house in the
been,
afterlife. Everything's cool there.
oh yeah. Nothing has been confirmed, but there have been interviews with Ian Hazzikostas, I think, where there had with a couple of game magazines or websites, whatever, where they have talked about there is a possibility, and I stress possibility, this might not even happen, of after Shadowlands, we have a time skip in the story where after the events of Shadowlands, whatever the expansion is that happens after that, from a story point of view, we don't teleport to Stormwind and Orgrimmar during the events of Shadowlands. We're in the Shadowlands for the whole time of the story, even if you can Hearthstone out and stuff like that.
Yeah.
From a canonical point of view, you're in the Shadowlands the whole time. Then the next expansion, when you leave the Shadowlands, instead of you thinking maybe you've been in there for like a few months, it's actually been like 10 years have passed, and you return to an Azeroth that has gone through a whole lot of stuff while you have been away for roughly 10 years. And I think it's that point, if there is that kind of time skip and that kind of progression there, I feel like that is the best and possibly the last chance, if they're going to introduce something like player housing, that expansion is the opportunity to give it a shot. Now, does that mean that I think that it's going to happen or that's likely? No, I would put the odds of player housing ever happening in WoW right now at 20%. So
I can see that.
if it happens, if it gets announced, I would be shocked. I'd be incredibly happy, but I'd also be shocked. Because I understand it's a big undertaking. If they were to, when Blizzard wants to do something, they try to do it right, and they try to do it in a way that, I mean, that they try to knock it out of the park, I feel. And I think that if they were going to do legit player housing, they'd want to make it the best player housing that anyone has ever seen in an MMO, and that's a big undertaking.
Exactly. I mean, their first attempt didn't hit that. So, makes sense.
Well,
but, okay, I am jumping all over this time skip because I have not heard of that because
you haven't.
No.
Again, it hasn't been like, it's not confirmed, so it's not really
and I get that.
But yeah, the thought of that has been brought up as that might be a possibility of what happens at next.
Yeah, but if Azeroth Roundtable is anything, we are the ones who make crap up and talk about how cool something's going to be without it ever coming true or predicting it 100% accurately. So, if there is a time skip, neutral faction all over the place, orcs could be in the alliance. That's all.
Well,
that's all. Just orcs in the alliance. No, like just mixing and all over the place. Like that would be the perfect time for there to be essentially another cataclysm that just reshapes the entire world. And
it
that
doesn't even need to be a cataclysm, though. It could just be 10 years of progression in the world where, guess what? They finally figured out with magic and stuff how to eliminate all those freaking tornadoes in Westfall. They finally figured out how to change some of the effects of the cataclysm.
Yeah, well,
there could no longer be a sword in freaking Silithid.
Yeah, what I mean to say is that it would be like a cataclysm where it's a rebirth of the world.
Yeah.
And that is just the most exciting thing to me because as much as I enjoyed, the cataclysm and the changing of the world and everything like that, it's still something that is so dated right now compared to where we are. There are things that are happening in this world that it's like, oh, that quest is still there. Why is Garrosh the war chief when I make a new character? And granted, I know a lot of that's going to be changing, with the new level up experience and everything like that. So like, that's kind of beside the point. But the idea that the next expansion could potentially be, hey, you're back on Azeroth. Let's see what's changed. Like, can you imagine Anduin being like not an old man, but like mature with a wife and like his own kid or something? Obviously Sylvanas won't play into it because she's going to be in the Shadowlands with us. But like, imagine like Bane being the leader of the Horde. We have no idea why. apparently someone whispered to him that he should be the leader or something, and then we find out what happens with that.
Interesting thing to consider. Taronda's coming with us in Shadowlands, and you know how Taronda feels right now about things. She returns after the time skip, and what if she sees
she's
humans
the
and
big
orcs?
bad evil guy. Yes. Oh, that would be great. Then we actually have an alliance character who's the bad guy, who we end up defeating fully, as opposed to Jaina, who ran away.
Yeah.
Heck, what's going to happen with Jaina during that time? I mean, there's so much, and like so much that they can work with, and it would truly be just completely uncharted ground of us going in there just by giving us this time skip. And I mean, I love the idea of this. And granted, I know we're fighting an old god right now, and we're going to the afterlife in the next expansion, but coming back and like imagine being, hey, we defeated death, people can die in a good way again and actually have an afterlife. I want to sit down like the expansion you just start off with, Valley of the Four Winds, where we're just like kind of homesteading and stuff. That could be the whole intro to our house, just oh man, I'm so excited for something that is not going to happen at all. This is great.
It's
great. So great. Yeah. Oh, and hold on really quick. I got to throw out Alessander. Yes. Yeah, it'd be great if they were able to figure out how to build a dam again in Loch Modan. I mean, it's kind of a thing.
Oh, lazy rivers. That's a callback.
Yeah, and there needs to be a lazy river. Simple as that.
And we need to have statues.
Like, can you imagine like a kind of disarmed Orgrimmar where there's not a zillion spikes everywhere because, the world's like kind of living in peace. And then it brings up the question as well of, were we only fighting because all the champions were there? Like, imagine they're all in the Shadowlands, the world moves on, and then we come back, and what if we break the peace?
What if Kalia Menethil just leads the Forsaken and tells the Forsaken, hey, you know what? It's okay to live above the ground. And they just reoccupy the castle of Lordaeron again, and Lordaeron becomes, an actual bustling city. It just has Forsaken in it.
Yeah, but, Kalia's stupid. But anyways.
Oh, okay. Hold on. I mean, I know we've only got 5 minutes here, but...
No, we got longer than 5 minutes. We're fine.
Tell me why do you feel this way about Kalia, please?
Because they had to take an alliance character to make them, a faction of the Horde good. If it's kind of going that way. I mean, we have plenty of undead people who could lead, who could be a really cool leader of the undead, like Lillian Voss, the first person to come to mind of, hey, she actually, went through a period where she didn't want to be an undead. She thought she was an abomination. She's kind of come through that, has gone through the whole experience, and we've gone through it, like seeing her grow as a character. She was right there. Yeah, she was following Sylvanas and everything, but she saw what happened. She's like, no, F that, even though Sylvanas is ultimately, playing the greater good here, and everybody knows that.
I don't think Lillian's a leader type, though.
But I mean, she would be a great reluctant leader in that case.
I think she's a good right hand to whoever leads the Forsaken. You know what I mean? It's like I could see her and Kalia having the same kind of dynamic, and I'm making this purely as as like a parallel here. I don't mean that they're exactly the same, but I could see Lillian being to Kalia as Nathanos is to Sylvanas.
Yeah, like I get where you're coming from, but I mean the big thing is Kalia's not undead. She hasn't been undead. She was alive for a very long time and then died and then was brought back in an entirely different way than every single other undead person. She doesn't have that experience. And on top of that, she just died. She wasn't dead for a long time and then brought back. It's one of those things where I'm just not a huge fan of it.
Oh, Ben. Another what if that's not going to happen.
Oh, yeah?
What if it's not Kalia Menethil, but I mean, what if weird stuff happens in the Shadowlands and Tyrannus Menethil gets brought back into Azeroth and just leads his people as an undead king?
Oh my
Come
gosh.
on, you have to be down for that.
Oh, I cannot. Oh, I hope he and Arthas are there. I know that Arthas isn't going to be there though, which is the bummer. Because can you imagine interacting with both of them and like the reunion that could have happened? But again, I'm happy that Arthas' story is over. Like, don't get me wrong. It has to be.
I don't count Arthas out in Shadowlands.
There needs to be finality at some point, and I think Arthas's arc of, you know, his whole story of rise and fall is like, it's one of the few perfect arcs that this game has, and that the as you know, the Warcraft world, not the World of Warcraft, but you know, the whole like universe and stuff. I think that there aren't very many, but Arthas is perfect.
What is a greater travesty to you in video game storytelling? Them bringing Arthas back in Shadowlands to be something, or Final Fantasy VII Remake changing Eris's destiny?
I'm fine with them changing Eris's destiny because, now granted, I just fell into the sewers after the whole honeybee stuff and everything. So already the game's changed. That's fine. That it's an entirely different game in my mind.
Final Fantasy VII Remake by saying that. It's like people are still speculating that is this remake going to change events later down the line.
Yeah, which I mean, who knows? It could. But here's the thing. Again, that's an entirely different game. World of Warcraft, because it's an MMO, is still the same game. So if they brought him back, that to me is just like, oh my gosh, it's gonna happen now because I think it's lazy and stupid, and that's all they've done with Sylvanas. No. Okay, no. So
I think Sylvanas' story needs to come to an end in Shadowlands. There needs to be some finality there, whatever happens. I'm not saying Sylvanas has to die, but I think Sylvanas' story has to come to a close in Shadowlands in the same kind of manner that Illidan's story essentially has come to a close in Legion. Could they revisit the character maybe 3 or 4 expansions down the line? Sure. But this needs to be the last chapter for a while for Sylvanas.
Well, and here's the thing. If they really want to make it so that, you know, she's different than Garrosh and everything, and I've said this before, they need to make her actually do something to save the rest of the world. Like, she's in the Shadowlands to bring it back to its full glory to where it was so people can have an afterlife and all this stuff. She needs to be looking out for her people so that when they do ultimately die, they have a place to go. And because I want that to happen, it won't. Because, again, it's just going to be torture on me and not fun, and it's going to be a bummer. So
we're keeping our expectations really low about this.
Oh, no, I'm keeping my expectations super high.
I will say this, though. I told myself playing the alpha that I wasn't going to do questing in any of the zones because I didn't want to spoil myself for the actual playthrough experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I broke that in Ardenweald, and I'm not going into detail, and I'm not spoiling anything, but I will simply say I do not regret questing in Ardenweald. Ardenweald's freaking amazing, and you're going to love it.
I'm really looking forward to that. I'm like actually super happy for Ardenweald. It is the one place I want to go because, one, I can turn into a fox. I am already a Vulpera, and I'm just going to turn into a fox and run around, and I'll be happy about that. But anyways, like overall, I really think her arc needs to end differently than Garrosh. And I think that is the most important thing that they can do. Otherwise, it is just repeat storytelling. I mean, look, we're not doing, you know, Star Wars, each of these trilogies are supposed to rhyme, because that's all BS. That's stupid. Tell good stories, mix it with good gameplay, and Blizzard, you'll have a huge hit on your hands.
And if you want to, you know, buff player DPS and Ny'alotha while you're at it, feel free.
that'd be pretty great, actually. I'd enjoy that. Yeah. Well, Ro, thank you so much for joining me. It has been an absolute treat talking to you. And again, I have to thank you one more time for filling in, 1, for someone who's sick, and 2, someone who tried their darndest to be here. Not that John didn't, but I mean, Belle, I want to make sure that you know for certain it's okay, and I understand.
Well, thank you as always for having me here. I personally can't wait for hopefully both John and Bell to be back here next week because I really love it when John and Bell are on the show at the same time. It just the two of them, I live for those episodes.
Yeah, I gotta say it can get a little spicy.
Yes,
A little
I
spicy.
don't mind a spicy episode once in a while.
Yeah. So until next time that we do have you on, though, where can people find you?
Oh, so many places. You can find me on Twitter at Brian Podcaster. If you're looking for me on other shows, I do a Warcraft show called Rolling Restart, which features a lot of the names that you've heard today, like Bell and Ben and John once in a while, along with a couple other great people like Cinder Marconin and some random extra special guests from time to time. I also do a Hearthstone show called Hearth Casual. You can find all that stuff at warcraftradio.com, along with Realm Maintenance, which is what a lot of people know me for. And I do a couple of D&D things. There's a Twitch stream every other week, roughly, called Feats of Fellowship over at twitch.tv/Spazbot Studios, and a D&D podcast called Plus 5 to Hit, which Ben is a part of.
I am.
We are playing in just a couple of days. We are reaching a very possibly climactic point in the current story arc we're in, and I am super excited for it.
Oh man, that arc went places too.
It
Like
did.
literally went places. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'm actually really looking forward to Monday. Oh man. So if you're looking for John, again, he wasn't on this episode. He wasn't just here in quiet the whole time. He wasn't here. But you can find him on Twitter. He is at John_Jagger.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate that. I just text him if I need him. So, anyways, John_Jagger. He also does a couple different shows. One of them is called Core.
Core.
Hey, thank you. And he does that as part of the Frog Pants Studios. They talk about video games and stuff. I know that recently, I don't know if Bo was part of it, but earlier this week or yesterday, I keep forgetting yesterday was Thursday. He and Scott actually talked over and looked at the PS5 announcement and everything.
I can't wait for Miles Morales.
Yes. And Horizon Forbidden West. Oh, I can't wait for that game. Anyways, so definitely check that out. That's probably on the Frog Pants feed. I'm hoping it's going to be on YouTube. If not, check out the Frog Pants. It's twitch.tv/frogpants. You can, probably look at old videos and stuff like that. Other than Core, of course, he does a show called There'll Be Dungeons, which is a persistent Dungeons and Dragons show, also part of Frog Pants. He's on that with Scott, Kyle, Kristen, and of course, Bo Schwartz. Lots of fun going on there, so definitely check that out. If you're looking for me, I'm on Twitter. I'm at Ben Bumhofer. I do a show with Ro called Plus 5 to Hit, where we play Dungeons and Dragons. We do. You might have heard about that before earlier in this episode. Hint, it's the same one we talked about. But I also do another show about Dungeons and Dragons called D&D Discussions. Do that with Ryan Reeder, where we talk about things from a DM perspective and a player perspective. So, not the most recent episode, but the one before, our topic was player death. Unfortunately, we should have said player character death throughout the entire episode because that's what we were talking about. And I felt a little foolish after being kind of notified, hey, by the way, it sounds like you're assassins, or serial killers. And I really appreciate that feedback. And it made me laugh and also kind of have a little tear when that came up. But anyways, check out that show. We talk about a bunch of cool stuff. We have fun with that. And last but not least, I'm on a show with Eludra called Box Fort, where we talk about whatever we want. Like if you like the Animal Crossing discussion that we had, well, we kind of had a little tiny bit. Eludra and I have been talking about it a lot. So, check those out. We also talk about some other stuff. I talk about Final Fantasy Remake a little bit. Just kind of as I'm playing through and stuff. But anyways, this show, though, Azeroth Roundtable, the one you're actually listening to right now, you can find us on Twitter. We are at AzerothRT. Of course, if you have any questions, comments, want to tell us about the accessories that you would like in your player housing, send those to AzerothRoundtable@gmail.com. And of course, every single episode is on AzerothRoundtable.com. You can find most of them on like iTunes, Google, Spotify, stuff like that. But if you want to listen to us live Friday nights, check out twitch.tv/AzerothRT. Watch our Twitter. We'll tell you when we're recording. And of course, I cannot end the show without a huge thank you to all of our patrons. They have been able to, help us out in rough times, help each other out, I guess. But basically, this show would be less than what it is if it wasn't for these members. And I have to say thank you very much to every single person who is part of our Patreon. Especially, however, the Murloc Club, which would be Aaron, Hurley Burley, Ian Graham, Jeremy P. I just realized I'm saying last names, and I told John not to do that. But anyways, Caleb M., Michael Van Awesome Guy, Sarah Morris. I did it again. Frack. I'm not the guy who usually does this, and also Tarian. Anyways, everybody, thank you very much for your patronage. We really appreciate it. And John will do it much better than I did this week, so sorry about that. But anyways, Ro, thank you again very much for joining me this week. It has been an absolute blast. Sylvanas is innocent. And everybody, until next time, be good to each other.
Yeah.
Also, my mom just texted and said I'm so cute because she's been watching the show, apparently. So, hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
Also, bye, everybody. She literally did just text. I told her to. I'm like, make sure to text when you're saying, 'cause I'll say something. But, I wonder if she's still actually watching or not. I hope so. Because, we're still going. But
yeah.
I should probably stop.